Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dallas Cowboys coverage after an unfortunate game in Arizona. It'd been a great first 2 weeks, and then the Cowboys really struggled week 3. I'm gonna break it all down. We'll talk about it. So let's get right back. Let's get right into it. Starting with Dak, I don't think he played really all that bad aside from the one interception. I think his performance is being a bit overhated. Obviously, it was not a good performance as a whole, but just on Dak, I thought, he was fine. I think play calling was an issue throughout the game. He was not put in the best situations, but aside from the one pick, I don't think it was a bad game from him. Obviously, not the best, but I wouldn't, as much as the national media is and will continue to, not really placing the blame on him. Tony Pollard was amazing. He over 100 yards. That was the first time the Cowboys have had a 100-yard rusher in a little while, for sure this year, and I'm not sure quite how long it's been since then. So Pollard has really done a good job all season long, and Rico Dowdle did well as well. I think his effort was really the big thing on display. Had some great runs, had an incredible play on a pass, a screen, sort of reminded me of a Marion Barber type of play. Just looked like he was going to lose a couple yards. Instead, he runs through everyone and gains like almost the first down. He was really, really solid. So the running backs, not the issue. I think, the wide receivers, CeeDee, not his best game. Gallup finally gets on track. He had like 10 yards in 2 games. He had like 90 week 3. So it wasn't all bad. CeeDee Lamb didn't get as many catches as targets as, he'd probably like. So, nothing super bad with him. There's just a one play where he wanted interference, and I think, it probably could have been, but just kind of gave up on that play. Can't do that. You just got to go all the way through, because I will say, especially in that game, you could not count on the refs for anything. The penalties were absolutely ridiculous. Part of it is on the Cowboys, because you can't commit that many calls, period. But some of them were very frustrating, like the one where the guy had the helmet in the chest of the Cowboys receiver and they picked up the interference call. Overall, I think it was a very poorly officiated game, but nevertheless, the Cowboys, you just can't commit those type of penalties. That was something that was really an issue, a couple years ago. I think that kind of has gotten better. Let's not get back to the penalty boys, because that's an issue, and that just, it can't happen. So overall, I think this was just kind of a humbling experience for the Cowboys. I think just kind of a wake-up call. You're going to have games like this. It happens. Week 3 last year, the Chiefs lost to the Colts, and, they won the Super Bowl. So I think this is just one you kind of got to flush. I don't think you should overreact to this one, because it was frustrating. It was a bad game. I'm not going to sugarcoat it in any way. But I think this is just one where you throw it all away, move on to the next. It was frustrating. The offense, especially in the red zone, just really could not get the job done. The defense looked lost, unfortunately. It was a rough one. So the offensive line was incredibly banged up. You were without 3 starters, Tyron Smith, Zack Martin, and Tyler Biadasz. So hopefully they can be back sooner than later, because when you have Chuma Edoga at left tackle, Tyler Bass at right guard, and Brock Hoffman at center, I mean, that's UDFA rookie, and Chuma Edoga. So not less than ideal for sure. Chuma Edoga, I think, is not really meant to be a tackle. He can play guard if he needs to, but tackle is just not the place for him. He really struggled, but for the most part, considering all things, all the situation, those 3 guys didn't play awfully. They didn't play great. Obviously, it's a major downgrade from 2 future Hall of Famers and a Pro Bowler. But I think Dak, again, just mostly did a good job. Only took a couple sacks. I think, they worked with what they had. So, it was less than ideal. But again, I don't think is the reason you lost either. The offensive line, it wasn't atrocious. It wasn't, like I heard someone say earlier on the radio, it wasn't Chaz Green. So, less than ideal, but it wasn't, could have been worse. And it wasn't, the reason you lost this game. It hurt. It made it harder. But, there were other issues for sure. You can't just pin it all on that. So the other thing is the defensive line. I think, a lot of people are asking, was the offensive line hurt or was the defensive line hurt? It was rough. The running was just absolutely ridiculous. James Conner was running over you. I mean, the quarterback, Joshua Dobbs, was running over you. It was frustrating. The defense looked lost. There was a lot of overplaying plays, bad cuts, bad angles, and you were just giving up a lot of yards. As good as your ground game was, the Cardinals was better, and the defense has got to take responsibility for that. The linebacking core has got to be better. You're so thin there, Van Der Esch and Damone Clark, and that's about it at this point. So I don't know if you need to bring someone in, if you need to, you got to make adjustments there though, because you are so thin. One of those guys gets hurt, and I don't know where you're at. Are you sticking Micah Parsons back out there? I don't want that. I want him to rush the passer. Marquise Bell, Donovan Wilson, obviously, can kind of play that box safety role as well as Jaron Curse, even Wanye Thomas, but incredibly thin at linebacker, and it showed because the linebacker play has not been, it's not been bad, but it's looked thin, and there's been some mistakes along the way, so that's something that's got to be better. The pass rush, I'm not worried about them, and as a defense as a whole, I'm not super concerned. It was a bad game, but I think with Dan Quinn at the helm, they'll be able to get back on track. But pass rush wasn't there like it was in the first game, couple games. The coverage was not there. You missed Trayvon Diggs significantly. Stephon Gilmore, well, I'm not going to overreact to him, has not been exactly his best to start the season. Bland is just, he's better in the slot. He can handle outside, but he's just not as good there. Jordan Lewis is still kind of recovering, coming back from an injury, so the whole defense just looked a bit lost, a bit slow at times, a bit, it was off. The whole game was just a bit off. So that's something they just got to rebound. They just got to make adjustments, and that's something I can count on, and I trust Dan Quinn and the defensive unit to do. You're going to have games like this where guys are going to struggle. I will give a shout out to DeMarcus Lawrence, though. He's been really good this year. I think he's got to be, the unsung hero of this team throughout his many years. He hasn't been filling up the stat sheet like he once did with sacks and stuff like that, but he is maybe one of the most dominant run defenders off the edge in the entire league. His role cannot be understated. Seriously, he shifts momentum. He makes the plays. He does the dirty work. He really, really did a good job. But, obviously it's just as a whole. Just got to keep getting better, keep working, keep improving. But I think it's just going to be the main thing as fans, as everyone. Just don't overreact to this. It's one game, I've seen people go in complete meltdown mode already. It's like, season's over. It's one game. And no one got hurt. So as frustrating as it was, this is one you just got to flush, move on to the next, and, hope for a better result then. But, at the same time, I'm not saying just ignore and be like, okay, we're fine. You got to make adjustments, defensively. I think it's got to be a reset. Just refocus, just get into that state of mind and prepare for the Patriots. Offensively, I have some issues, especially with the play calling, because as much as I agree and, I'm happy it was time to move on from Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy has really been underwhelming for me. It's just been a bit frustrating because Kellen Moore, I think, was just a bit too aggressive, put Dak in a lot of bad situations, and McCarthy's done a better job in not putting, Dak in positions to throw all these interceptions. He threw his first one last game, so, 1 in 3 games is not bad at all. But at the same time, I think it's been too conservative. Just, they've been playing kind of scared, they haven't been pushing the ball downfield. You got Brandon Cooks, you got Gallup, 2 incredible deep threat players. CeeDee Lamb, of course, can do everything as well. They felt scared to throw the ball downfield. Well, I like that Dak is being more conservative, not just gunslinging into interceptions. Be smart, but at the same time, don't be passive. And I think that's one word I would use to describe the Cowboys offense so far. They've been passive, particularly in the red zone. It's like they're moving downfield. I'm not going to say they're not moving well. I think the run game has been a huge part of that. Tony Pollard's done a great job. I like that you're running the football more. I think they should continue that. But you got to have some situational awareness. Once you get into the red zone, mix it up. Let's do some bootlegs, some play action, some quick passes. Don't just run it up the middle. So many times, 1st and goal at the 9, run 1 yard. 2nd goal at the 8, run 1 yard. And now you're 3rd and a long goal. And those are hard because, the field shrinks. It's tough to convert on those plays, and that's how you end up forcing passes, get interceptions, or you come up short. Over and over, you're just setting yourself up to fail. at least if you're going to run outside, do something different. Some pre-snap motion, for crying out loud. Something. And that was just, I think, has been the big issue, even in the Jets game. As much as we were dominating that game defensively and on the scoreboard, we kicked 5 field goals. And you can go back to the last week's video. I talked about that. It's got to be better, and it showed. This time you weren't dominating. This time you fell behind, and you weren't able to make that comeback. You weren't able to rebound. You weren't able to put points on the board. That's what's going to happen. When you're 1 for 5 for touchdowns in the red zone, it's unacceptable. And to me, it comes down to play calling. It's just, you got to be smart. You got to be better. You got to mix it up. And McCarthy's just got to be a little more aggressive here. I like running the football. I really do. I'm not going to, dock him for that. And it's still early. But he's just got to, be a little innovative here. I think he's so stuck in his ways. It's been a while since he called plays. And I think that's what caused the Packers to kind of want to move on, because it was just getting so stale. It's week 3. It can't be stale yet. He's just starting here. So, I'm not going to overreact at the same time. I'm still going to give him time. But he's got to be better, and he's got to mix it up, because we've seen the same result, struggling in the red zone. The defense carried you in the first 2 games, and they didn't show up week 3. Unfortunately, that's its own issue, but the offense, as good as they were most of the field, the red zone, they just collapsed, and it's something that's just got to be better. I don't have all the answers. We'll have to see. They're going to have to practice. But this has got to change. You just can't be passive in the red zone. You got to be aggressive at times. You got to push the ball downfield at times. Situational awareness, you can't be extreme one way or the other. You just got to find that balance. And if the Cowboys offense can do that, they're going to be a lot better off going forward. So, I think those are the main things. Kicking was good. Brandon Aubrey did a good job. But again, I don't want to see him on the field so much unless it's for extra points, So it's just got to be about finishing drives. It's not like we were going 3 and out. It's not like we were punting constantly. It was just not finishing. And that, that makes a big difference. 3 points and 6 points, 7, it's a big difference. So thanks again for watching. I think that's about it. It's just, again, let's not overreact to this one. Let's focus on next week. Patriots coming to town. Drop your predictions for that game. Zeke, Will Greer will be back. So, Cowboys, they've talked about maybe having to change up some signals a little bit. So so they're not giving a Spygate for the Patriots. We'll see. But predict your score. I think the Cowboys do bounce back in honor of Zeke. I'm going to say we win 21-15. If it happens, awesome. If we win by even more, even better. So I think they will bounce back. I think it's just got to be refocusing. The defense just getting back on track. The offense just being a little more aggressive. Just be aggressive when you need to be. And then when you don't, just do what you do. So I think this team is a very good football team. I think they've showed their potential in the first 2 weeks now. They just got to make adjustments, got to fight through some adversity and get back on track. So thanks again for watching. I will see you guys next time, hopefully after a win. So go Cowboys.